So this API that we're using, I'll post it in the channel right now. It's called like random users. It just generates random users for you to parse from, and I'll make sure to kind of go over the documentation for that. Let me just get the link here for you guys. So the most important part about these APIs is just being able to read the documentation. It's super crucial. I know Ben didn't really harp on it too much. He brought it up briefly, but he would definitely agree just to kind of really go over the documentation and read every single bit of it, kind of figure out how you need to get inside of it and get the data that you want. Otherwise, you'll be lost. And I'm only speaking from experience because I've done this many times where I kind of just skim through it and think, oh, I know what they want. I know how to get a user. I know he has a name, and then you're not getting anything back. So it's really important, and especially for Friday on your sprint challenge, to really, take 20 to 30 minutes just to go over the documentation. It'll save you so much time in the long run. Trust me. I know it's hard to do because it's documentation, but trust me, it'll save you in the long run. And if you, go to these documentations and you see what you're trying to get, for instance, we want to build a model that will basically get the user. So if we're looking at that API, what we basically want is, a user, and a user has a name. Well, a name is also a dictionary of results. So then we basically have to make a struct for the name to dig into that. Same with the picture, but the email and phone, for instance, are in the results dictionary already. So they're not nested any sort of name struct or anything like that. So this is really crucial for the sprint challenge on Friday. This was the thing that tripped me up when I was a student. I went through is I did not know how to get this nested data. I just thought you made a struct for the picture, you made a struct for the name, and et cetera, and that's not how it works. It really took me a while to wrap my head around how they were doing this to get the data out, even after I had built things, but I was basically just listening and regurgitating as best I could and keeping up. So I'll make sure to try to touch on that with you guys. What's up, Michael?
Hey, what's going on? Sorry for being a little late. I'm just want to, especially what you're about to go over right now is what I really want to see. So.
Oh, no worries. So if you're just following along, it's fine. If you want to follow along with the project, the start projects in the After Hours channel, you can just fork and clone it. It's just a blank project. We'll kind of breeze through the UI layout here. I won't really go too in depth just so we can get to the real meat of the code and have more time to dive into that. I also posted the API link in the After Hours channel. And like I was telling them, it's really important. And I'll say it over and over again. I'll tell you on Friday as well to read that documentation. Go over it with a fine-tooth comb. You'll probably hear me say it even when you have a job at Google one day. It's like read the documentation. You really need to go over that. That's your guide. That's your manual of how to start this car and get it running. So let's just, if you guys are ready, I'm just going to go ahead and start building out the UI here. And again, it's going to be pretty straightforward because we really just want to get into the meat of the code. So I'm basically just going to have, like a table view and maybe a detail view for the user, etc. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So I'm just going to drag out a table view controller here. Let's go ahead and embed that in a navigation controller. Go ahead and drag out a view controller. There we go. Then we want to kind of give these some names. And we even might maybe just make this cell kind of a basic cell, make it a lot easier instead of us having to have a custom cell. So let's go in and make that a basic cell. Style basic. Give us a title there. Now from this cell, let's control drag, segue, show. And we'll call it show user segue. Then we'll go in here. We're going to give this a title that will change, called user. You could even call this title will change. Doesn't matter. And then we need the email address, the phone number, and a picture because the name is going to be displayed in the title here. So let's go ahead and drag out a label for the email. Go ahead and Command D that. I can select it. There we go. So now we have two labels. Set them up just like that. Go over here, click email. Go on this label and type in phone. Shift click on both of them. Embed those in the stack view. go to your TIE Fighter constraints, 20, I'll just do 20 here. I'll just do 40 here. All right. Then we'll drag in the image. There's another reason I'm also doing this very quickly. I'll tell you guys afterwards. Just take your image, just stretch it out there, boom, perfect box. Don't even need to mess with it too much. Go to your constraints, lock that bad boy in place just like that. Width, height. If you don't, it'll scream at you. So is everyone on the same page? So now we just set up the UI in what? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, however long that was. Your project on Friday, your sprint challenge, is going to be something very, very similar layout-wise. So would I spend 30 to 20 minutes on the layout? No, not at all. I'd go in there, I'd throw these labels on, throw the image on of what you need to get. Again, the sprint challenge will show you what you're really trying to get. So whether it's a zoo animal or a Star Wars person, you're going to know, all right, I need the name, I need the starship, and I need the picture. So boom, throw those on there, get everything up and running, and now you have 3 hours or whatever it is to work on the meat of the code, because that's what's going to hold you up the most. Do not ever worry about the UI at first. Throw that stuff on there, get it working, and you're kind of on your way. So now let's make the subclass files for these. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my view controller file and just hit Command-N. Cocoa Touch class, UI table view controller. I'm going to call this user table view controller. Hit next to create. Do the same thing. Command-N. Cocoa Touch subclass file. But this one's going to be a UI view controller. We'll just call this user detail. So you should have 2 subclass files, one for the table view controller, one for the detail, just as usual. We'll go back in the storyboard and give those view controllers their class names. So users table view and users detail. And then we'll hold the option button, click user detail, close that out, and let's connect these outlets. So I'll sit here for a second to give you guys some time.
I've got a problem with, like, I tried to add the file and it was missing, and I tried to re-add it, said it already existed, and now, like, none of the groups are being found.
Weird.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's just because of the folder inception, possibly.
Maybe.
You want me to zip this up and send this to you, or would you want to just, how would you want to go about it?
Well, hold on. I think I got rid of the error here.
So what is it yelling at you for? It's just saying it can't be found or it can't be located?
Yeah, like, I created the file, it showed up in the group, and then it went ding, and I clicked on it and it was red, and there's no, like, it doesn't show the file.
Oh, right. If I was you, just either delete it and try adding a new one or drag it out of that group folder.
Right.
Sometimes those groups can kind of act funny.
Yeah, I'm working on it now.
But while you're doing that, I'll also kind of continue to express this sort of sprint layout idea. You know, again, this unit in this sprint is really not about your UI. So that's why I'm kind of harping on the fact of just make it super simple, make it work. That way when your TLs look over this, they see, oh, this guy's networking is on point. You know, he has everything pulling correctly. It may not look the prettiest. We may not have a Pokemon launch screen or whatever it be, or a, you know, a zoo animal launch screen, Star Wars launch screen, whatever it may be, but you will still have the meat of the code working, which is your MVP. So did you get that working, Kenny?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, cool. Then we'll just connect these outlets. And sometimes, here's another kind of Xcode issue that I've always faced is sometimes when I go to connect these outlets, they'll literally give me an error, and I have to just basically restart Xcode. I have no idea what that's caused from. Haven't seen it often. So if that does happen to you guys and you keep control dragging if you have this name, just kind of close out Xcode and restart it. It should work just fine. Maybe you'll do it for me now and I kind of show you guys.
Sorry, Austin, is it possible to get this part of the project? I've been having issues with my internet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you want me to, I'll zip this to you?
Yeah, what you've done so far. Yeah.
All right, no problem. Give me 1 second.
I will be right back.
All right, no problem. All right, so I'll send this in the after hours channel. Actually, I'll send this to you, Toby. I'll be posting the solution in the after hours channel after as well. So let me know if you can get this open and everything.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so I'll just connect this last outlet while you're doing that, Toby. So we're going to connect the phone now, those who haven't already done so. Grab that image, and then we'll just connect that image. All right, cool. So it didn't give me any problems. Is everyone else all right?
So far,
Yeah, mine's
so
good.
good.
I'll give you a second, Toby, to get it open. Just let me know when you're ready.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. This is really important. And this first week, it really kind of sets off how your rest of your month will go. If you guys have a really good victory on this sprint challenge, I think it adds more confidence throughout the whole month, especially with the third week being core data, and that's a whole nother beast of its own. But these two things combined really add a great skill set to your kind of iOS development portfolio. So
like if we're like for the sprint challenge, or if they give us like a GIF or like what it looks like, and our UI doesn't really like look like that but it's functional, then we won't get marked down at all for that.
no, not at all. I'll make sure the TOs kind of, if that is the case, that we examine that. I just want to see that you know what you're doing when it comes to networking. You know how to build these models. You know how to kind of do these functions and all that. That's all I really care about.
Sorry. So I do have it open, and what exactly am I missing now?
What do you have right now? Do you have the user's table view controller and user's detail view controller?
Yes, I do.
Do you have the outlets connected? And the
Uh,
user detail view controller, you should have 3 outlets.
no, actually, the table's not. Give me 1 second. Sorry.
No worries.
Nah, no outlets. Okay, so connect the email.
Phone and image. Yeah, that's all. That's where we're at right now.
Okay, cool. I'll do that now.
And Toby, just like I was telling them earlier while you're doing that, just really, really read over the documentation for any API that you're using, like the one we're using today and the one that you'll be using on Friday. Take at least 30 minutes to read over that documentation. I'll say it again on Friday, and if not tomorrow, if Thomas holds an after hours. So you getting that folder issue? I just heard it done.
Nah, not yet. I'm just connecting stuff.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, with regards to reading the API documentation, yeah, you don't have to tell me twice. Today, I had an issue with one of my keys. We were working on it for over an hour, and Michael picked up that I had my username camel case instead of having it all lowercase like.
Oh, right. I think that's what Thomas told us. He had something about a capital N, something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Exactly.
trust me, I learned my lesson.
Exactly. And again, there's stuff that you guys will have to get that you won't know that you'll have to get. So in the instructions, they'll be asking you, hey, get this so-and-so called image. And you'll be like, I don't even see that. So you really have to navigate the documentation of like, where do they have this in the documentation for this image, whatever it may be. They may have these all broken up, and they won't just have it all laid out there like Spencer and Ben did in the Vapor project. So you really have to dig in there to get what you want. Are you set, Toby?
Do you have any best practices for like finding that kind of stuff in the documentation, like quickly finding it, or like the best way?
Yeah, that's the problem. Is there is really no quick way. You literally have to go over it like you're a philosopher reading through documents of like, what do they want? What do these aliens want from me? How do I give it to them? You know, it's like the Bible basically when it comes to these APIs. As intense as that sounds, but you're not going to get anything from that API if you don't do exactly what they're saying. And unfortunately, there's no way to like hit spacebar search in their docs of like, hey, let me find this. I'm sure maybe some do, like keywords, but most of the time, especially if it's one you're really interested in, like again, I'm doing one on missile launch codes. It's very just bare, like here it is. If you can't get in, tough luck. You know, look on some forums on how to get in. So some may be really well documented and some may be not at all. And usually those are the ones that you really want, unfortunately. So we'll continue here. And now we can really kind of move on to the code. So if we were going to do this, what would be the first thing we want to do when we're parsing this data? Out of anything in the whole entire world, what would be the first thing we would do? First thing we would build.
Base URL.
Close. That's what we do in the controller. What would we build before the controller?
Model.
What was that, Michael?
The model.
Exactly. Toby, you're on the right track. So when we're doing that, it's 100%. I was going to ask the same question to the API controller. What's the first thing we want to do? A lot of people don't realize they need to do that base URL first. So let's click on this group folder, hit Command N. We're going to go ahead and build that model just like Michael said. And we'll just call this user. And as you guys can see, if you go to the documentation, I'm screen sharing on this for recording purposes, but if you go to that link I sent, you go into the documentation. So this one is pretty easy to read. So if you go and you kind of scroll down a bit, you can see it says results. And it says the API will provide you with a formatted object of your choice that you can parse and apply your application. So as you see, we have, just like in the projects we've been doing, we have an array of results. And in that array, we have a user that has a name, but that name is also a dictionary of a few kind of property results. So we have to get inside that name and get the, the title, the first and the last out. And then we have the email, as you can see, which is in that result, so we don't really have to dig for it. And the email as well. So all we really need to dig for and kind of create structs to dig down deep to that nested data is for the name and the picture. So as you guys can see, if you're looking at the documentation, you go down, you see picture, it also has a dictionary results. So we have to get inside that and get the thumbnail image that we want. And again, this is really crucial for your sprint challenge on Friday. This is the one thing I couldn't figure out was how to get this dang image in. So, and a lot of times they'll have it called something differently. So if you're dealing with Harry Potter and they don't have it called picture, but they have it called, I don't know, conundrum image or something, you have no idea that's what they mean, but it is. And you can find the documentation. So just a warning, it's not always going to be name, picture, this, that. It's however they want to structure the API documentation. So let's go ahead and build that out. And once I'm building this out, I'll kind of explain, it'll make a lot more sense of this kind of unnesting this data. Again, at first for myself as well, it was really confusing. So, don't be too hard on yourself while we're doing this. This takes a while to kind of understand. So the first thing we're going to do, let me grab my screen back here, is we're going to make a struct for user result. It's going to be decodable. And in that, we're going to have a constant called results. So let's go ahead and make that. Again, you can put codable. Codable does both encoding and decoding, but it's just proper to kind of put what exactly you're doing. We're just decoding this data. We're not putting anything. We're just getting data. And now this is where I'm going to kind of do some digging. So I'm going to make it an array of user. It's going to yell at us, don't worry. Just let it yell at you. And then we're going to create that user struct. So it's going to have the name, the email, the phone, and the picture, just like the documents are saying. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say var name of type. We're going to do the same exact thing like we did with the user. We're going to say name here. It's going to yell at you. Let it yell at you. It's all right. We'll kind of figure that out. Take the array brackets off. Let me do that. So that's going to be of type name. And then we're just going to have a var email of type string. Since that's just in the results, we don't have to dig for that. The same with the phone. Now for the picture, we're going to have to do the same thing we did for the name. We're going to say var picture of type picture. All right. Now let's go ahead and make that struct for the name. So we'll say struct name decodable. As you guys see in the API documents I'm looking at here, in the name it has a first and a last. So we'll say let first be of type string, let last be of type string. And now it'll stop yelling at us for that name. So now when it hits this name of type name, it knows to come into here and use this.
So the reason why you're not having to do title is because we don't want title, right? Like that's like if we wanted it, we would have to put that there, or
Title for what?
in the documentation, doesn't it have that for name? It has like a name. It says a name is a title.
Yeah, if
Which is
you
like a
want,
Mr.
like, yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, if you want the title, absolutely, it's whatever you want. So it's like
But so
literally
we don't want it, so we don't have to model it basically, right? Like,
exactly. It's sort of like that wanted poster I told you. When you're looking for your lost son named Billy, and you describe him to the person, that's who they're gonna find. So if you don't want them to find Billy and he's got a bad attitude, you want to leave that out, then they're gonna leave that out as well when they're looking for him. See what I'm saying? It's only going off of what you want it to find. I know that it was a weird example, but that's how I always imagined it. Like you're basically giving it a model to find. Like find this for me. I don't care about anything that's not in my model. So you can leave it out as much as you want. You could add in as much as you want. It's
Just a
not
quick
the
question.
same thing. Go ahead, Toby.
Why don't we follow the typical convention we learned before, like having different models and different files? Like, why do we all have it in one file now?
Because this is for the user. So all of this is just for the user, just for the user's data.
Okay, I understand.
So it's all related to the user. It's just like this is basically what we're doing. We're like grabbing the user and then we're just digging down into it. We're just going to get everything the user has, but it's still the user.
Okay, I see. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So now we'll just do the picture. You see, it'll stop yelling at us as well once we do that. So we'll say struct picture decodable. I believe this is, let me look at the documents. I believe it is yeah, we want the thumbnail. We want the large version. So we'll say var thumbnail, type URL, var large, type URL. So let me know when you guys are all on the same page. I'll kind of discuss a few things. So we all know what this decodable is doing.
Yep.
So would I need a decodable if I'm just putting something?
like
No,
if you weren't taking it from an API that has it in JSON.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything. I'm just just shoving something somewhere. Would I still use decodable?
no,
I don't think you would need it, but
put encodable.
Exactly. And this, maybe you guys are picking up on this quicker than I did, but at first I was really confused. Well, why don't we just use codable all the time? Why do we use encodable, decodable? When something's coming at you, let's decode that. When you're throwing something, encode it. And again, I know it's a very oversimplification, but I think this sort of helps you understand it. I've always been told if you can, explain something that's complicated in a simple way, you can sort of understand it. And once you wrap your head around this, I think kind of when you're new to this, like I was, when you get thrown these tough concepts and they're explained to you the way they are, it's really hard to even get a grasp on what's going on until you have it going through it again and again and again. And then you can form your own little metaphors like I've done. So as you guys can see here, again, this is the main point that will trip you up on Friday, right here in this model. It's just digging down into this. So as you can see, I'll go through it line by line. We have this struct of user results. And that's going into that API because it has a dictionary of results. But in there it has the user. But the user is buried inside of there. So we're going to have to make a struct based like another model, little mini model, same model, not mini, I suppose, for the user. Now, in the user results, it has a name, but the name also has results to it. So you basically have to get inside there as well. And that's why we do the same thing again. Now we got to create another little mini model. So when we hit this and we hit the name, we know to get the first and the last. Because in the documentation, as you guys are seeing, it's all nested in there. So every time you have these curly braces, like Ben said, that's just new dictionary results. So you got to get inside of there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So now what's the next thing we need to do? We got our model.
Now we need a model controller.
There you go. So let's go ahead and let's hit this model controller. Let's hit Command N, Swift file. Now naming this is kind of subjective. I've always been calling mine API controller since I started doing this, just because I know this is the thing that's kind of manipulating the API. You can call it however you want. You can call it user controller, model controller. But for me, it makes more sense, especially when I'm going through someone's file, like, oh, this is an API controller. So again, it's whatever you want. Just sort of make it as clean as you can.
If you have a if you have a bunch of API calls and auth calls and stuff, sometimes it helps to break it up. Like you have an auth controller and an API controller.
Right. Exactly.
Even though it's the same API. I'm
a firm believer in the naming conventions. Like, it's just be super clear with your names. It never hurts. Maybe redundant at times, but just be super obvious. You know, Lambda's trying to teach you to have clean code as well. So let's go ahead and make that class the API controller. And in here, we're going to have our user, an array of our users. So we can say var user, array of user. Let's go ahead and initiate that. I'll do it this way. All right.
Wait, so is that the same thing? Like setting it equal to an empty array, or just putting the parentheses and initializing it? Or
correct. But maybe this looks cleaner. I'm not sure.
Yeah, which way are you like? Yeah, like what's the convention? Like which way is it?
I think either works. I just saw some people's code and I was like, I didn't even know you could do that once upon a time, and I just do it every now and then. But this may be just more obvious to people.
So the way you're trying to do it with the constructor, you have to assign it. So you have to do user equals instead of user colon.
Oh, I see. I see.
If you're using the parentheses.
So like this.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
So now what's the first thing we need?
The base URL.
You're correct. So let's go ahead and make that base URL. So let base URL equal the URL with the string. Let's go ahead and pass that. It's not the, I know that's the first part. Go ahead and pass that link in there, and I'll post it in the Slack channel. Here, I'll actually post you guys a simpler one, so we don't have to keep doing this appending. So just drop this in your link here. If I can find the after hours channel, here we go. And that's the entire URL. And I always advise against that. But for this after hours project, we'll make it short and sweet. You always want to append. Even like today when we're doing, user login, I would have done 2 different appending path components for that instead of just one, because the less strings you have, the less errors you could possibly encounter. You just want to force unwrap that. We know we're going to have that. So let me know when you guys are all on that same page. All right, then we can do the type alias, just like Kenny said, and this is really important. And I was going to go over this, but thankfully Kenny as well posted in the iOS 13 help channel, kind of explaining why we'll be doing this. This is just one of the ways you can do it. It just saves a lot of time. Again, I'm only doing this for project's sake. This is not the way you guys were taught. I don't know if you guys want to implement this in your afternoon. I mean, in your sprint project, that's all right, but I'm not exactly advising you do it. If you're comfortable with it, go ahead. That's awesome.
You mind explaining what this type alias thing is?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is basically so we don't have to keep repeating ourselves every time we're typing out this completion handler. We can just use this type alias. As you see, the type alias is the completion handler. So it's just an easier completion handler to use, just a, I guess a swiftier way of doing it, as they say, and you guys will learn about that in like Unit 4 of Swifty code, just really short, condensed code. So that way when we use this, we really don't have to face any issues. So now we're going to make our function for getting our users. So let's go say func get users. I don't know why I always capitalize that S there. And what we want to pass in is just the completion. And again, the way I'm doing this is very different, I suppose, from, I guess, conventional ways, because I'm just doing it the way that I know to do. There's many different ways to do this, like I just said, but this is just the way that I'm doing it for this project. So I keep saying that because I don't want you guys to go into the Sprint Challenge Friday thing, and this is the only way to do it. It's not working. What should I do now kind of thing. This is just a quicker way to do it. And I'm also doing this because I don't want to be giving you guys the answers to the Sprint Challenge on Friday. It would be extremely easy for you guys to have the Sprint Challenge and be like, I'm just going to copy and paste this code, put it in there, change this to the name of the API that needed, etc. So I'm going to 2 for 1 here. So in this users, we're just going to pass in that completion. So we're going to say completion, and it's going to be the @escaping completion handler.
That looks a lot nicer, for sure.
Yeah, especially in the long run.
Why assign it there?
What do you mean, Kenny?
Like, why the equal sign?
I'm mostly just doing that. I'm trying to think of a good explanation without making it sound ridiculous. But mostly because I don't. All right, I guess that's the best way to put it. Mostly because I don't really care what we get back. I'm not looking for anything. If I don't get what I want, which is just the results of the user, which is the data, then just everything can crash. So I don't really care about the variables getting passed in there. But I will care when I'm doing it with the the URL and the shared data task, the data and the error. So in here, I'm just don't really care about the naming of it. So I can pass in that blank and say whatever's in there, then let's do it. So
I guess what I'm wondering is just why, like I usually call it without the equal sign. Like I just call it @escaping completion handler.
yeah, I'm sure you could do that. So what do you mean, just like this?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we've been doing it in class, without the assignment thing.
Yeah, and to be completely honest with you guys, the way that this is just the way that when I did this after hours, similar, my TL had a similar after hours project. This is the way that he did it with me. Same reasoning that I'm doing with you guys this way, because the sprint challenge, etc. So that's why I really had to try to think, like, why did he do it this way? And this is exactly what I was telling Kenny with these job interviews. So it's like, just because I know how to type this code and it works, maybe I don't know exactly 100% while each little thing does. So when you're in a job interview, that's mostly what they're going to ask you guys. When you write this code, they're going to say, well, why, Michael? Why are you doing it that way? And it's going to make you think, well, wait, I'm not even entirely sure why I'm doing it this way. And that was one of those moments. So again, let's actually try without it, because I've already done it with it. So let's just try it without it. It's always good to learn new stuff. So that's when we're going to use this URL session. And the best way I always explain this URL session is it's basically like opening up an internet browser in your code. So let's go ahead and say URL session.dataTask. And pass in our base URL as normal. Excuse me, guys. We'll go ahead and look for that data in the error. So I don't care about the response, right? But I do care about the data and the error. And then after here, you always want to hit .resume. Wrong one. Nope, that was the right one. I know it's have to. Why is that not completing for me? Interesting. 1 second.
You forgot the in keyword.
Oh, right.
That's all it is.
Good catch, Kenny. Because we're looking for data and error in what we're about to write. So we're going to say if let, let's error handle this, if let error equals error. Always want to error handle first, just check for the errors. Let's just go ahead and NS log this, just to make it easier. Let me actually option click on NS log. Logs an error message to the Apple system log facility. So just logs a default error message, but we'll pass in that error that we're looking for. So we'll do this. We'll say error, getting users, and let's string interpolate, add that error. Now what do we want to do? We want to make sure we have that data.
Either return or call the complete. Oh, after, sorry. We want to guard let the data.
There we go. So again, just like Ben said, this is all usually going to follow the same conventions. So once you've typed this out once, twice, 3 times, then you start making sense and it starts kind of clicking. So at first, again, don't be too hard on yourselves if this isn't really all clicking. This is kind of tough stuff to get your first lesson. You're only 2 or 3 days into this. So you guys are doing really well for being your first times. So same with the NS log. If there's no data, we'll say no data. So make it short and sweet.
Learning on my own, it took me 3 days to get a request back. So like 3 full days, like 8-hour coding days.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, again, I did web development self-taught, so I don't even know what it's like trying to self-teach yourself mobile development. But from what I've heard, Lambda kind of condenses that. You'll learn more than you did in like, you know, a whole 6 months of self-teaching in the first 4 weeks or so, like Kenny has told me before. Stuff's not easy to find on your own, especially when you're just reading documents and kind of going through these YouTube tutorials or whatever it may be. So here, as you guys see, I have this completion, but I don't care. So I'm just going to say in that completion, it's going to be nil. I'm just going to pass in nil. So if we don't have the data, just get out of there. All this is going to be short and sweet. And most of the time when you do something like this, it's because you know there will be data. You're just trying to kind of prove your concept. Does that make sense, guys? So now what we want to do is we want to do the do, try, catch. So you know, what's funny is when I was first starting out in mobile development, this was the hardest thing for me to write for some reason. I would see Spencer write it. You know, he'd write it super quick. We'd go through it, and you know, I'm trying to keep up on my screen. I'm watching the lecture, and by the time I look back, this is what he has. And I'll look back, and I'll be like, I have no idea what bracket goes where, how to do what. So just like I showed you guys, like the easiest thing just to do the do, hit the brackets, type your try right in the middle, and then do catch, open up your brackets. So I know this may be kind of trivial, but just for those who have a bit of trouble with that, you know, because a lot of people write their code won't have the try until they're actually doing something. So maybe kind of however you want to do it.
I had to like write out step by step 1, 2, 3, and then write the whole thing backwards just to make it make sense. It's weird.
Yeah, and I've even heard of people making code snippets. So if you can
Oh,
understand it, make a code snippet. But if you can't tell me word for word what's going on, never make a code snippet. At least that's the thing I live by, because then you just get used to using this code snippet. So let's go ahead and just do.
So Austin, real quick,
Yeah.
I was just looking at the if let error equals error block. Don't we want to complete and return there inside of that?
No, I'm just going to print the error. You could. It definitely wouldn't hurt to just get out of that once it doesn't have, you know, I guess once it has an error. So let's go ahead. Never hurts.
Okay. I would normally complete too, just so it closes the task.
Right. Let's go ahead and add that in there. I can add it in there.
I've just had it happen too many times where my task stays open and I can't figure out why, and that's usually it. You could do the completion first.
Excuse me, guys. So now let's just do try catch. So we're going to say let new users equals that try. And again, you can do this decoder wherever you want. I'm just doing this for the project's sake of all in one line. So I'm going to say JSON decoder.decode. We're going to say user result.self. And of course, it didn't complete my. Of course, drawing blank. Long day, guys. Apologize. All right. And then we'll just print the new users to make sure we have them.
Oh, so you don't need to set the JSON decoder to another variable. You could just do it like that, and that works just fine.
What'd you say, Michael?
Like, I think, don't we normally just put like lowercase like JSON decoder equals JSON decoder initialized or whatever, and then use that? But like, I like the way that you did it better. That's fine for us to do it like that?
Yeah, it's just I'm just really trying to write this as condensed as I possibly can.
Yeah, no, I like that better. I just didn't know that we could. All right.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. So there's so many ways to go about a lot of the stuff you're learning, but the ways they're teaching are definitely the best ways. It's just once you kind of know what you're doing a bit, not saying I completely know what I'm doing, but you can definitely just kind of do things in a swifter way.
Yeah, that's called method chaining, and that's one of the coolest things.
So let me know when you guys have that.
I'm getting an error when I try to do that. The self dot
User equals new users.
yeah.
So you should have. Do you have the var here for user?
I do, but I think I just changed it to you. Just bear with me.
No worries. Been a
Yeah.
long day.
But I have it before the print statement. Does that matter or not really?
I wouldn't think so. We're just printing that. This print doesn't even have to be there. We're just, in the kind of debugger there, the log, we can see once you run the code that it will print our new users. And you want to do that when you're kind of building an app just to see that you're actually getting the data you want.
Right. It says cannot assign value of type user results to type array user.
So do you have this right here? Self.user equals new users.
Oh, sorry, I missed the results part. No, sorry, that's fine. My bad.
No worries. Is everyone else good?
Yeah.
So now we're just going to ns log again. And again, we'll just say, like, I don't know, something simple, like error decoding users. Seems like a straightforward shot. We'll pass in that error. Now, what happens with this is when you get this message saying error decoding users, now you know where this error is happening. Now you don't have to lay down breakpoints. That's why you want to, when you can, make these error messages sort of obvious to yourself. So when you run it and it says error getting users, oh, that must be in my iflet, or error decoding users. Oh, well, now I know that my decoder is not working properly or whatever. So it's always good to do that. And then we'll just add completion right after that with the error as well. Stop giving me the dead. And now this was always funky to me. We'll do it. But then you want to call completion again. We'll just say nil here. To sort of wrap up this whole thing. Similar to what Kenny said. Does that make sense, guys? I know I'm not the best instructor. I'm working on it.
You are doing a really great job, Austin.
I appreciate it, Kenny. Especially with someone like you here, it's a bit intimidating. You know what you're talking about, so
Oh,
yeah,
you're doing great, really.
appreciate it. And again, if you guys are ever TLs and SLs, whatever, when you do these tutorials, you guys can do them now actually, but when you do them, record them, post them, and then when your employers be like, hey, look what I can do. Like I can do all this stuff. It's just these little things that add to your sort of portfolio as a developer that you may not even think about. Even working with other developers, when you guys do Build Week, ask your Build Week team, the Android developers, the web developers, the data science, whoever you have. If you guys really get along, you work together, be like, hey, could you leave me like a positive review on LinkedIn? They can go on and say, I've worked with Toby. We built this. He was an excellent person. I worked with Michael. He's really organized and has a good work ethic or whatever. Just these little things are going to help you get an edge when you go to put your resume in. And they see, wow, this guy's really been around the world and back, kind of thing. So now, kind of wrapping up here, we're kind of making good progress. Now let's go ahead and go into our user's table view controller. And now we're just going to kind of fill it out just like we usually do. And we're going to say var API controller type. We want to make that equal to the API controller, in fact. Just make an instance of your API controller. And that's how we're going to use these to count the users, etc. And I'll show you guys a few neat things that you can do with these table views if you haven't learned them already. This is where I learned something neat. So, all right, so now we'll move on to the number of rows and sections. If I can find it, here we go. So I usually delete this unless I know that I need it, but we don't really need it right now. So I'll say API controller dot user dot count. Then we're going to uncomment that cell for row at. They should really, in the next update, make it to where these aren't commented out because it seems like people always use the cell for row at. So now we got to go back and give that cell an identifier. So if we go into our main storyboard, we go to our cell, make sure we're on the table view cell. It's really important. And I would always suggest any kind of file hierarchy to really just select it. Don't try to kind of click in there until you get something. Select it, and you go over to the identifier and call it the user cell. So let's go over here and do that. Identifier, user cell, copy that. Always do that, it's just easier. Let's go back and let's give that reuse identifier of user cell. And then we're going to say in the configuration, we'll say let user equal the API controller dot user, and we'll grab that index path. And here we'll say cell dot text label text equals, so it should give me that optional text label there. All right, equals the user's first name. So we'll say user dot name dot first, but also dot capitalize because it's disrespectful. Not capitalize someone's name. And now what we'll do to add some space, we'll add a plus here, an empty string, and then another plus. And I'll explain this for after if you guys haven't already figured it out. Then we'll say user dot name dot last. I don't know why my autocomplete's being so slow. All right, so right here, oh, don't forget to capitalize. Control autocomplete for me. All right. So right here, we're basically just taking the first name, just like here. I'll kind of do it in a comment, John, and then we're going to add a blank space. So basically, these aren't going to be here, but this is what it's going to look like, just like that. But in the tail view, you won't see the kind of string itself. We'll just have that space.
If we want to use string interpolation, will we just put that entire like the user dot name dot first dot capitalized in parentheses with the backslash, I think it is, before it? Or
if you want to string interpolate something, yes. So like that.
I guess my question is, do we put like the entire like first name part and then the last name in two separate ones in quotes, or?
No, that's not what we're doing here. Are you saying can you do that?
Yeah, I'm asking can we, yeah.
Yeah, if you string interpolate, you can kind of wrap it around whatever you want. If I'm understanding correctly.
But like would it be like the dot capitalized is also in the string interpolation thing, or would that be afterwards, or?
I would assume that'd be right in the string interpolation itself of the user dot name dot last dot capitalized.
The only thing that will be missing from the string interpolation would be the plus, space, plus, but everything else would be more or less the same.
Is that what you mean there in the chat?
Yeah, that is. Thank you. Yeah, sorry about that. I just don't use the this method as much. So.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were asking. So now let's go ahead and get that image data. So we'll say guardlet image data. Oops, I have a capitalized that, and we'll say guardlet image data equals try optional. That's how we have to make it the guardlet. And we'll say the data contents of, and just that user picture thumbnail. So we'll say user dot picture dot thumbnail. Else, let's just throw a fatal error. Fatal error just kills your app.
So what's the difference between doing try with the question mark and without?
So usually what I do, especially if I'm testing, I just force it. That way I don't have to do the guardlet. For the try with the optional, it's just basically, again, this could fail. This could not be here. Maybe we don't have the image data to try the contents of. So if we force that, we could. It's just not the best way to do it. I would always just kind of do this guardletting with anything like this if you can. It's just the safest way to do things.
I was just wondering why it's an optional at all. Like in a do try catch, it wouldn't be. Is that because it's being unwrapped in the do try catch?
I can't really give a specific answer on that.
Okay, that's fine.
What do you think?
I have no idea. I just I've seen it a few times and just wondered why sometimes you need the question mark on a try and sometimes you don't. Like why sometimes that try statement is optional and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, that's a good question, especially for some new developers. What I'm assuming is that it's just saying like I may not be able to get the contents of this data, so I'm gonna hopefully try it. And if I can succeed, I'll assign it to that image data. But if I can't, then I'm just going to fatal error it. But again, just like everything else, I know you can just force it. That is a good question. Those are the questions we need answered.
Yes.
And I wish Ben was having Q&A on Friday because there's a lot of good questions this week that myself I'm curious about. Because again, this is a hard month for anybody in general. This is a lot of stuff to digest. Even if you went through it twice already, there's always stuff you haven't seen, just like myself. I've been through it. This is the third time now, and there's stuff just like that where I'm like, wow, I've never even thought about that. It's just like certain stuff never comes up. That's one of the reasons why when you're going through LAMBDA, it's just like take every day for the day that it is, because you don't really get that day back. And it's you're having all these concepts thrown at you and you have to digest them all. And a lot of times you won't have all of them kind of run through your filter. And then it comes for a sprint challenge and it's like, I have no idea what to do here because you've already filled your head with other concepts. So I know it's hard, but I'm there now of just like learning stuff and trying to remember the more simple stuff and just back and forth. It's like a constant game of just practice and repetition. I know it's not the easiest answer, but, and again, always being sort of sidetracked here, humble about where you're at. You know, people can only help you when you're honest about where you're at. And I've seen so many people not want to kind of be honest, especially with students and especially SLs and TLs. But I'm always the first to say, like, hey, I'm wanting to learn. I may know things that you don't, and you may know things that I don't. And I'm literally here just to become the best iOS developer possible. Hopefully you guys have the same mindset. I may be a bit more competitive to where I want to be better than every single person in the world. So if I have someone like Kenny and he's really good at it, or I have someone like Spencer and I see they're really good at it, I want to be just like them. Just like if I was playing football or whatever, like, man, Kenny can run super fast. Teach me how, that sort of thing. So always keep that in mind. You know, and again, I know I'm kind of giving a speech here about this, but when you get hired by someone, don't front of who you are. You know, especially when I've had senior developers tell me, we just want the honest, what you can do, what you can't do, and we'll kind of hit the ground running from there and prepare you to deal with, you know, our structure of our software and our APIs and all that. So don't walk in and be like, I know exactly what everything is. They just want to see how your mind is working. They don't expect you to be geniuses. They don't expect you to be the best developers in the world. They just want to see, how is Toby thinking about this? How is Michael thinking about this? How is Kenny thinking about this? So just a little side note there, since we're almost done anyways. So here's the little cool part that I never knew about. So in this, each cell has a little image that you can get, just like a text label. So we can say cell, just like we always do. And then we'll do the, let me close my Zoom video here. So cell.image. And you'll get the image view. And just like the text label, you get that image. And it's going to equal a UI image. What do you guys think will pass in here? Besides the data, of course.
The image data.
Correct.
But where is the cell imagery coming from?
Each cell has, just like each cell has its own text label, each cell has its own image view property that you can call upon.
So it's gonna put a little mini profile picture thing on it.
Exactly. You guys will see it's really cool. And you can implement it on your projects. You can do it on your sprint challenge of like, hey, this wasn't even required of me, but check this out. Your TLs will be like, whoa, I didn't even know you could do that.
I had no idea that was there. That's really cool.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know that.
Yeah, once you guys see it, it's really cool too. It's just these little things that kind of get you excited of like, man, I'm kind of getting somewhere with this.
That'll save me doing a lot of custom cells. That's usually like the #1 reason is because I have an image.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm finding so many ways that you can kind of capitalize on the storyboard that I didn't know was possible before. Just like I asked Spencer, and he kind of told me there's a lot you can do with the storyboard. Don't count out the storyboard. So let's go ahead and go down to that segue. We'll uncomment that. Let's go ahead and delete all that. So we'll say if the segue identifier is equal to, I think we called it user detail segue. It's always best to go check, but I'm not going to because I'm pretty certain. So like always, we're going to say guardlet. We'll just say user detail VC.
I think in the file you sent me, you've called it show user segue.
All right, cool. Maybe that's what I have it named here. So again, another good point. Always got to check. Always got to check. Never not check. That sentence may have not sounded correct, but gets the point across. So we'll say the user detail VC equals that segue.destination. We're going to downcast as the user detail view controller. Else return. So I'm actually going to go check to make sure that that is what the segue was called. That is way too bright. Show user segue. Look at that. Would you look at that?
You lit up my whole room with your screen.
Yeah, I know. I'm usually adamant on the dark stuff. It's like I'm surprised it took me a while to even convert. For a while, this was the white too, but after a while, it just hurts your eyes. It's killer. So let's go ahead and put that in there.
I've got my whole thing in dark mode.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to think about getting those yellow glasses that they have, since I already wear glasses. So let's say now we're gonna do the index path. So same thing. We'll just say starlet index path equals the table view. Index path for selected row. Let me know when you guys are good with that. And then we'll say let user equals that API controller. And what we want from that API controller is the user. So dot user at that specific index path dot row. All right, and then we'll say the user detail. This is the best part for me. I love this. User detail VC equals the user. User detail VC dot user equals user, and this is why it's my favorite part. And then we'll hit Command B. And without Kenny, because I know he knows this, because we've done this with this game before with him. What do you guys think is going wrong here? Besides the first error, forget the first error.
You don't have a user variable on your user detail.
Man, you guys are quick. You guys are quick. You guys should be cops or something. Quick draw McGraws.
Now, who knows what that first error is? Nobody?
Wait, the first error.
Oh,
It's saying,
yeah, I see what you mean. So what do you guys think the first error is?
oh, you didn't put equals. You just put equals. You said it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not checking. It's
just like that.
The only reason I knew that right away is because I've done it so many times.
Yeah. And usually they'll tell you. So usually you can be like, why? What? I shouldn't get an error here. And it's like, oh, forgot the extra equal. So just like Michael said, let's go into that user detail view controller. Let's go ahead and give it that user. So what I basically do is just say, and we're going to add a did on this, but we actually also want the API controller. So let's go ahead and give it that. Let me get my Zoom window back here.
Wait, can you set a segue identifier like that?
What do you mean?
Like how you had it? You said it equals instead of like checking if it equals. Like, can you programmatically set a segue identifier?
Yes, I mean you can, and maybe I'll show you guys, and you guys get into it next week. You can build an entire project without ever once touching the storyboard, where you will have to create segues and all that stuff, and it's kind of tricky. And I only learned it because of my build week project. I had to do it, so unless you have to do it, you probably will never know to. But yeah, definitely. I can go. Where's this? Okay, here we go. So we'll say API controller. Same with the user. But here we'll just add a property observer. And the property observer we'll call update views. It's going to yell at you. And then we'll also put the update views in the view to load. It's saying I have no idea what this is, but it's all right. We'll tell you what it is, Jack. And now we'll create the update views. So let's go ahead and create a function called update views. Now in this update views, let's just make sure the view is loaded, because we don't want this user to show unless the view is loaded. So we'll say guard is view loaded. Then we'll go ahead and just add a comma. Add another one here, and we'll say let user equal that user's first name. So we'll say let user equal user, not the user's first name, sorry, just the user. Return. Okay. Then we'll say title equals that user's first name. So we'll say title equals user dot name dot first dot capitalized. I always forget the dot capitalized. And you can, let's just go ahead and add the last name in there as well, just for the heck of it. We don't have to, but it'll just look cleaner. Same thing we did before, the plus, and then we'll say user dot name dot last dot capitalized.
Where are you getting the title from?
But it's become from the navigation controller. It's embedded inside of it, so
Oh, okay.
every navigation bar has a title. As long as you embed it in that navigation controller, otherwise you just have a blank UI view controller that does not have a title to be accessed. So
Yeah, I thought that was like supposed to be a variable or constant. So I was thinking, where did you put it on this
yeah,
file?
especially because it's just kind of out there on its own and get a bit tricky to read if you're looking at it really quick. So now just so you guys know, we'll do the email label text equals user dot email. Same with the phone. Phone label dot text equals user dot phone. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with the image data again. So let's say guard let image data equal try data contents of the URL. But we don't want the URL, we want the user's picture. So we're going to say user.picture.large because it's a large version of that picture. Else, let's just throw another fatal error. Let's just kill the app if it doesn't work. And then we can just add that image. So we'll say image view. What do I call that? Oh, user image. So user image dot image equals user dot picture. Another one again. User. Oh, right. It's a UI image. So let's say, let's take what's going on. So just the UI image and the data, and then once again, we'll pass in that image data. All right. I'll give it a second here. All right. Now what am I getting an error at? Let's go ahead and Command B that. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, so go ahead and run it. I'll get my simulator here. So you guys see my simulator?
No.
Let me share. Oh, guys, you know what we didn't do? Come on.
We didn't set the initial view controller.
Come on, guys. You're gonna let me do that? You're gonna make me look like a fool in front of everybody? That's ridiculous. So let's go ahead and go in there and add that initial view. It's always the simple stuff. Is initial view controller. So let me run that and then I'll share my simulator screen once I have it up and running.
It's
So
not
you guys,
showing me anything
have you
on my.
guys ran that?
Yeah, I've ran it, but it's not showing me anything. It's just
Toby,
yeah.
what'd you do? You must have done something. Just kidding. What did we not do, guys? What did we not do in that table view?
Oh, we didn't set the deli. Oh no, we
You're
don't
getting
need.
close. I feel like you're getting warm, Toby. I feel like you're getting
Oh,
warm.
is it the table
Oh,
view
the data
reload data
store.
or?
Oh
Yeah,
no.
there you go. The tail view with the reload data and the view will appear. So let's go ahead and just comment out that. Let's go into the user's tail view controller. We'll type in view will appear. Just type that in. Then super.view will appear. And made it true. This will appear. And then we'll do that tail view. Dot reload data. Now let's see if it runs, and if it doesn't, we've got some debugging to do. I'm still seeing nothing. You guys seeing nothing?
Yeah, mine's not loading anything.
There's a reason for that. Can I give it away?
No, you cannot. You cannot give it away. Unless they can't figure it out. I'll ask and see if sort of us new developers can figure it out. Do you guys know why that's not working?
Can we get a hint?
Kenny, you want to give them a slight hint if you could?
It has something to do with data. Like where we're getting it from.
The data source for the table view?
No, we set that up.
Do we need to decode it or something?
I think we set up the decode function.
So this is going to be
Well,
tricky for you guys because I don't think you guys have done this yet. Maybe you
We had to do it on the guided project. So that's a big part of it is you're talking about the function where we would decode. We set all that up. But now
Oh, we didn't call.
Three.
Yeah, we didn't call
yeah,
those
we have
that
to
function.
call the API controllers .get users onto that table view. So let's go ahead and go back there. Go back to the table view controller. Let me get my Zoom window out here. This will make sense once you type it out, guys. So the view did load. Let's go ahead and go underneath that. Type out our API controller. Let's go ahead and get that method of the get users. Go ahead and hit enter on that. Error. Let's go ahead and error handle. We just want to nslog, just like always. We'll say error getting users for table view. You can pass in that error. And just like on the project today, we're going to go ahead and run the dispatch main queue so we can reload the data. So let me go in here. Dispatch. Dispatch queue dot main dot async.
So with this, okay, I was about to ask.
Yeah, you're on the right track. Let's go ahead and give that a run. Now let's see. Let me go ahead and share my simulator here. So is that working for you guys?
Yeah, it's working.
I see a head shake from Kenny.
Yeah, I must have I must have missed something here.
Yeah, mine says error decoding users data corrupted.
No, I just get no results.
We'll take a look at each one. So what does yours say, Michael?
Error decoding users, which will tell me where it is because I think that's what I typed, right?
Yeah. So let's go ahead and go into your model. We'll just go to this bit by bit and just make sure your model matches mine. I know it. You may think it. Let's just make sure that we'll just go through each step. And as I've told before, another students, like when you're kind of going about a problem, unless you know exactly what the problem is, it's always just best to start small. Just go over everything, and again, you may catch something where you put a capital N when you shouldn't have, etc. So once you know that's right, we'll just kind of go to the next one. And Kenny, what about you?
So yeah, my model's fine. I'm getting back an empty array. Like it's decoding, but there's no data.
My model looks identical to yours from what I can tell. So.
All right, sweet. So now let's go to the API controller. And Kenny, we'll take a look at yours if you can't get it figured out.
Yeah.
Unless you have a similar problem. So if you guys have this base URL, correct? It needs to be the JSON results of 20.
Yeah.
And then you have the users array.
Yep.
So I'll just sit here, and if you guys want to go over line by line, I'm sure we'll catch it eventually. So Toby's, yours runs?
Yeah, mine runs fine.
All right, cool. So yeah, we'll catch it eventually. I'm sure it's something. Maybe I was going too quick.
So I mean, I'm getting through the whole thing without any errors. That's what's weird.
Is your TailView class, I'm sure, just named?
Yeah.
So Michael, just let me know when you're good on this. If you've went through.
Yeah, I'm line for line.
What about you, Michael? You good? We may just have to take a look at you guys' projects individually.
Mine looks like it is good with yours. I'm just trying to make sure that, because like I don't know if I named everything exactly how you did, but I named most of them for the most part exactly how you did. So.
All right, yeah, we'll just take a look at yours individually here. Since that is the end of this sort of guided project on that. Let me just stop recording.